Hello everyone. So today I actually want to look at how to solve basic one-step equations. And the reason why is because in our math seminar, we've been discussing how to solve multi-step equations. And what I'm noticing is that there's some struggle with solving those equations. So what I want to stress in this video is that you want to make sure that you have a very firm foundation on how to solve one-step equations before you actually move into solving multi-step equations. The reason why is because if you do not understand how to solve one-step equations, you're going to struggle with multi-step equations. Okay, so let's look at some basic one-step equations. So here I have 5 plus x equals 3. And on this side, I have 5 plus n equals 10. So now it doesn't matter which variable is being presented, x, n, p, or whatever letter you have here, you're going to solve them in the same manner, okay? So these are our one-step equations. So here, with our 5 plus x equals 3, you want to first isolate or think about how do I go about isolating my x so that it stands alone, okay? The only way that I can do that here is to get rid of my 5, okay? So here I have a positive 5, so I need to get rid of the 5 so that my x is by itself. The only way that I can do that is to minus out my 5 here, because a positive 5 and a negative 5 crosses each other out. It cancels them out, eliminates them, okay? So now, on my left side, I have x equals, and now I have a positive 3, a negative 5. I know that I need to subtract because I have two numbers with the opposite sign. And so when I subtract, I get a negative 2. And why a negative 2? Because I have a negative 5, which is greater than my 3, and so I'm going to end up with a negative 2. So now my value for x is negative 2. So x equals negative 2. So now let's look at our next equation here. On this side, we have 5 plus n equals 10. Well, this one is pretty much similar to this one here, and I still need to isolate my n, okay? Meaning that I need to actually get my n to stand by itself to get it alone. And so to do that, I'm going to minus out my 5 on both sides, because what I do on one side of this equation, which is to balance it, I must also do on the other side. So now I have a positive 5, a negative 5. I can cancel these two out, eliminate them, and I'm left with n equals, well, here I have a positive 10, a negative 5. I have a positive and a negative, so I'm going to subtract, which will give me a 5. I have a positive 10 and a negative 5. My positive 10 is greater than my 5. And so I'm going to end up with n equals 5. Okay, so now let's look at two more examples. In our previous examples, we actually looked at addition. So here we're going to look at subtraction. So here we have p minus 4 equals 1. And the other one we have r minus 3 equals negative 12. This should be a negative 12. Okay, so now in order to solve this equation, we know that we need to get rid of our negative 4 because we need to isolate our p. We need to get that p alone by itself. So in order to do that, we're actually going to add 4 here. And remember, what we do on one side, we must also do on the other side. So we're going to add a 4 here as well. Now, when we add this 4 here, this allows us to then cancel out these 4's here, because a negative 4 and a positive 4 cancels each other out. and that leaves us with P equals 1 plus 4 gives us 5. So our answer is P equals 5. So now let's look at the next example. Here we have R minus 3 equals negative 12. So we know that we need to, again, isolate our aura. We need to get it alone. And the only way we can do that is by getting rid of this negative 3. So we do that by adding 3 here. And remember, what we do on one side, we also do on the other side. So we have to add 3 here as well. So now when we add our 3 here on the left side, that allows us to cancel out these 3's here, which leaves us only with the aura. So we're going to bring down our aura, equal sign. Now we have a negative 12 plus 3. So we have a negative and a positive. So we know we need to subtract because that's the rule. So when we subtract, we get 12 from 3 from 12 gives us 9. Now we need to ask ourselves, is it a positive 9 or a negative 9? And in this case, it's a negative 9, and the reason why is because we have a negative 12, which is the greater number. So our answer for this problem, or this equation, is R equals negative 9. So now we're going to look at how to solve multi-step equations, but before you attempt to solve multi-step equations, make sure that you have a firm foundation on solving one-step equations, because you will have difficulty in solving multi-step equations if you did not establish a firm foundation for solving one-step equations. So now for these two examples here we have on the board, we have a negative 12 equals 3 minus 2k minus 3k. Here we have a negative 3 times 4r minus 8 equals negative 36. So in these two expressions, they are different in that here we have like terms, and here we're going to be required to utilize the distributive property. So now let's talk about our first equation. So the first thing that I notice is that we have like terms. So we need to recognize that. So here are our like terms. We have a negative 2k, a negative 3k. So when we have two negatives, remember that we need to add them. So this will give us a negative 5k. And now we're going to bring down our 3 equals negative 12. So already I have simplified these by adding them together, which gives me a negative 5. And now I'm ready to go further, okay? So the next thing that I need to do is, I know that I'm seeking to isolate my k, okay, which is the variable that I need to determine the value for. So in this case, I'm going to do that by first getting rid of my 3. And the only way that I can do that is to minus out the 3 on both sides, because I have a positive 3. And if I subtract 3 from a positive 3, that allows me to cancel out my 3. So I'm going to cancel out here. And now I'm ready to bring down my negative 5k on my right side. And on my left side, I have a negative 12, a negative 3. So I'm going to add them because I have two negatives, which will give me a negative 15. So now I still have this negative 5 beside my k that I need to eliminate. And I'm going to eliminate that negative 5 by dividing, because the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide 5 here. And what I do on one side, I must also do on the other side. So I'm going to divide 5 here as well. So when I divide by 5, this allows me to eliminate the 5 here, the negative 5's here, leaving me with k. And then negative 5 or 15 divided by a negative 15 divided by negative 5 leaves me with a positive 3. And so my answer for this is k equals 3. So now let's look at the other example here on the board. So now we have a negative 3 times 4r minus 8 equals negative 36. So this requires for me to utilize the distributive property. So in doing so, I have a negative 3 times 4r will give me a negative 12r, because a negative times a positive will give me a negative, and 3 times 4 is 12, and I bring down my r as well. Now I'm going to distribute my 3, negative 3 times a negative 8 will give me a positive, because I have two negatives, 24, equals negative 36. Now that I've gotten rid of my parentheses, and now I'm ready to solve for my value of r. So to do that, I know that I need to get rid of my 24. I have a positive 24 here. And in order to get rid of my positive 24, I'm going to subtract, because that's going to allow me to cancel out my positive 24. And I'm going to subtract 24 on the opposite side of the equation as well, because what I do on one side, I must also do on the other side as well. So now I have a positive 24, a negative 24. That allows me to cancel out my 24s on my left side, leaving me with a negative 12r equals, and now I have a negative 36, a negative 24. So I know that I'm going to add, and that's going to give me 60. Okay, and so now I have a negative 12 beside my r, and I know that I need to now get rid of my negative 12 in order for me to isolate my r to get it alone. And I'm going to do that by dividing by a negative 12 on both sides of my equation. And that's going to allow me to then cancel out my negative 12 on the left side of the equation, leaving me with r equals a negative 60 divided by a negative 12 would then give me a positive 5. So my answer for this, or my solution for this particular equation, is r equals 5. So as you see, multi-step equations are more complicated, and that is the reason why you want to make sure that you have a firm foundation in solving one-step equations before you attempt to solve multi-step equations. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Have a nice day.